Hey everybody! My name is Debbie, and you may have seen me on TikTok. I record with my best friend, and we often end up in the top videos. On our page, we collect images of Hailey Bieber, show people how to wear an oversized shirt or roll their jeans, stuff like that. We've even started making money from it. We also launch challenges. We've already done a week just in dresses, a week in high heels, and even a whole day without a cell phone. That, by the way, was the most difficult one. But then we decided to come up with something really unusual. A day without underwear. It was the craziest idea that turned my whole life upside down. Now I'm going to tell you how in just one day, I became an object of gossip and ridicule, lost my best friend, and won the guy of my dreams. I go to a prestigious school. One Friday, I, as always, wore sneakers, knee-high socks, a skirt, a white blouse, and nothing else. I was so nervous all day, afraid of even the slightest breeze. The whole time, I was holding my book to my chest and my skirt with my hand. But my friend Abby was even worse. She had left her favorite push-up bra from Victoria's Secret at home, and she had to put on one of her mother's awful blouses with huge frills, which no one even wears anymore. Well, you know why. I felt like everyone was looking at me the whole time, as if they already knew about my secret. Particularly strange was that the captain of the football team was staring at me all day. His name is David, and he's super popular. When he transferred to our school 2 years ago, Abby and I immediately fell for him. He never paid attention to us, and we decided that we weren't going to share one guy, so we just forgot about him. But here David was, quickly coming our way, looking straight into my eyes. I tugged at Abby's sleeve and pointed in his direction. There was clearly something wrong here. He stopped very close and just said hello to me. I was so confused that all I could do was smile. Then David asked me about the book I had been clutching so tightly all day and whether he could see it. It was my notebook full of outlines of ideas for Abby and I's videos. He told me that that was cool and that he hadn't figured TikTok out yet. He asked if I could help him, maybe even that night if I was free. Just like that, the coolest guy in school had asked me out on a date. I was blushing super hard and couldn't help but smile. And, of course, I gave him my phone number. When he walked away, it was as if Abby had been replaced. She told me that I was smiling like a ditz, and that it was weird that David even wanted to go out with me. That's when I realized that my best friend was jealous. Abby started screaming that I was a complete idiot, and that I had no right to flirt with him. Before I could even respond, she grabbed my notebook and threw it into the pool. "What are you gonna do now?" she asked me. I got angry. We started screaming at each other, and then she pulled my hair. We started hitting each other, and then I grabbed the frills on her shirt and tugged it so hard that it came off. Then she pushed me as hard as she could, and I fell into the pool. When I came up, my first thought was why I hadn't worn waterproof mascara that day, and what a jerk Abby was. Water had gotten in my nose, mouth, and eyes, so I didn't notice that a crowd had gathered around and people were pointing fingers at me. Everyone was whispering and recording me on their phones. There were more and more of them. Some called others over to see. Someone started laughing out loud and whistling. I didn't know what was going on. And then I looked down at my blouse. My shirt had gotten wet and had become see-through. It was the worst possible day to fall into the pool. I tried to lower myself down into the water, but then my skirt started coming up. Now I had to hold both it and the blouse. The crowd started applauding and asking me to get out of the pool and come on stage as soon as possible. I wanted to give them the middle finger, but both of my hands were busy. I gathered my courage and began to come out of the water to the whistling. What else was I to do? I couldn't sit in there forever. And at that moment, someone extended a hand to me. It was David. He covered me with his jacket. "Dude, you ruined it for us," they shouted from all sides. But for me, David was a hero. He took me home and didn't even ask why I wasn't wearing underwear. We talked about that later, on our first date. David was actually very supportive. If not for him, I wouldn't have dared come back to school after the weekend. But he came for me in the morning, and we went together. One time, I asked him why he had decided to help me then. He replied that he really liked my soul. Yes, of course, he liked my body. But what can you do? Abby and I still haven't spoken. She messaged me that same evening that she was prepared to do anything for me if only I'd stop seeing David. I told her that I wasn't making any promises. Then she called me an idiot again and changed the password on our TikTok page. Now it's just her page. So that's how I lost my TikTok, got embarrassed at school, and found a boyfriend. But I still miss Abby. It's not fair that she's making me choose between her and David. Who would you choose if you were me? Well, that's all for me. Thank you for listening to my story.
Hi, I'm Alice. I'm 17 years old, and the strangest thing happened to me. Once. I've never had anything worse happen in my life. Here's how it all happened. Before an important date, I buy a new dress, but Joe invited me to the water park, so I went out for a new swimsuit. Joe was not my boyfriend yet, but he was extremely popular at school, and I wanted to impress him. Since the date at the water park didn't imply deep conversation, I decided to focus on something else. I chose the most expensive swimsuit, which was held together using the smallest amount of fabric possible. There were a lot of people that day, and it seemed like everyone was looking at me in my little swimsuit. If only I had known that I would really be drawing their attention. Soon, Joe and I were in the jacuzzi when he suggested we go on the tallest, steepest slide. Now, I have never skydived or bungee jumped. I don't like scary rides or even driving at high speed. That's what I should have told him. Instead, I decided to play along and agreed. So I ended up on the slide for suicidal people. Joe went first, and I just couldn't make up my mind. You just need to slide down and pretend that you like it, I told myself. There were 10-year-old boys behind me in line, waiting. They began to rush me, and I turned around and shouted at them that I would jump when I was ready and no sooner. Then one of them pushed me, and I slid down. It was ridiculously fast and scary. I emerged from the water like a cat that had been thrown into a bath against its will. I wanted to get out of the pool quickly, but unbelievably, I didn't have my swimsuit on. That traitorous swimsuit, which already took up too little space on my body, had disappeared. I looked around, but it was nowhere to be seen. The water was too clear, and I couldn't stay there in that state. I cringed and swam to a bubbling pool nearby to hide under its bubbles while I decided what to do next. I had to find Joe, and no matter how embarrassing it was, ask him to help me. I looked around again and saw Abby from another class. Of course she would be here, I thought. We hadn't spoken in more than a year, and I knew that she liked Joe. By the way, the swimsuit that she chose was even smaller than mine. Although, who was I to judge? At least she was in a swimsuit. Again, I tensed my whole body and hid behind the bubbles, bashfully. But then I saw Joe. He was talking to Abby. Did he really not care where I went? It would have been nice to get offended and leave. But how would I do that? So I began waving my hands and calling him to ask to give me at least a towel. But he didn't hear me. I was struggling to hold back tears when some boys on the other side of the pool caught my attention. They were the ones who pushed me. They were laughing out loud and very excited about something. They were trying my top on themselves. Hey, you! Don't touch that! I shouted at them, but when they saw me, they took off with the top of my swimsuit. Where were their parents? I was sure that it couldn't get any worse, but no, it could. Some guy walked up and started hitting on me. Hi, can I keep you company? This pool is only for those who have lost their swimsuits, I muttered. What? I said no! I need a towel and dry clothes, but definitely not company. But the guy was not at all deterred by my unfriendly tone, and he began his pickup attempts. That's the kind of no that means yes. I'm getting in. He sat on the edge of my jacuzzi and started putting his legs in. No! He looked at me like a crazy person. It's just that my boyfriend is coming. He's the jealous type. I don't want there to be any trouble. Oh, I got it. I'm out. Sorry. Phew, I had finally gotten rid of him, but I was so upset that I just kept talking, even after the guy had walked away. Why didn't I ask him to help me? Was it already closing time? I was surprised that the water park had become noticeably quieter. No! Anything but this! But the silence wasn't because the park was closing. It was just that the bubbling jets in my pool had suddenly stopped. Anyone nearby could have easily seen me sitting there in my compromised state. Suddenly, out of the silence, came the distinct sound of Abby's voice. I looked in her direction. She was walking with friends. Joe wasn't with them. They were walking right towards me! God, were they going to see me? Why me? The whole school would surely know about this by tomorrow. I wondered how much the water distorted my physique. Maybe something small looked big. There had to be at least some positive in this shameful situation. What was I thinking? Oh no, she was very close. Now she... Yes! Bubbles, you're back! How I missed you. I dived headlong into the pool, and when I surfaced, Abby and her friends were gone. How I longed to be able to move freely around the water park in clothes! How long had I been sitting there? I had never spent so much time in water in my life. Suddenly, an employee of the water park approached me. How long have you been sitting here? What time is it now? He said 8 p.m. In that case, 4 hours? I looked at him and noticed that in his hands, besides a towel, was my swimsuit. And I thought I was embarrassed before. What's your name, darling? Alice. So, Alice, I'm going to put this swimsuit and towel nice and neat right here and walk away. Shh. We'll pretend we didn't see anything. Slowly, he began moving away from the bubbling pool, which I had been sitting in for 4 hours. When I did get out, I immediately checked my phone and found a bunch of missed calls from Joe, but I didn't call him back. His sympathy was even less reliable than my swimsuit. I look back now and laugh about what happened. It's actually kind of funny. And that's all. Thank you for listening to my story.